How's it going, y'all? So today I want to go through and talk about the French and Indian War, kind of give an overview of this type of conflict. This conflict took place not only on the American continents, but also took place over the sea, in the ocean via Navy engagements. They went through and fought from boat to boat, not just on land. So let's go through with that and preface what happened. The French and Indian War, fought between 1754 and 1763, was a significant conflict that involved the British and French empires, as well as various Native American tribes. The war took place primarily in North America and was part of a larger global struggle that was known as the 7 Years' War. This conflict played a crucial role in shaping the future of North America. This conflict led to major political and territorial changes that affected both the European powers and the natives living in this region. So let's give a little bit of background on this conflict. In the mid 1700s, both France and Britain were powerful colonial empires with vast territories in North America. The British controlled the 13 colonies along the eastern coast of North America, while the French had a strong presence in Canada and the vast interior regions of the North American continent, especially along the Mississippi River and Great Lakes. These places were underneath French control. The conflict arose mainly over control of land, resources, and trade routes in the Ohio River Valley. This was an area rich in fur-bearing animals, so animals that have pelts, fur, and this area also had really fertile land for growing crops and for just building good settlements. So with that being said, understanding that having a town or city built around a place that is very fertile in terms of its land and just natural resources prevalent in that area allows you to have a more effective place built. Let's go through and discuss how these places were not always unoccupied. Many Native American tribes were present in these locations that they wanted to go through and develop cities and towns. Therefore, Native American tribes were deeply involved in the conflict. These places were empty. They had other people living there. Naturally, people want to go through and choose a side. Typically want to go through and we want to stick together. The Native Americans in this particular region were involved in the conflict because they had long-standing relationships with not just one, but with both European powers. Not just the French, not just the English, but both. Some tribes, such as the Iroquois Confederacy, allied with the British, while others, including many in the Ohio Valley, sided with the French. The Native Americans hoped that by supporting one side, they could protect their land and maintain their influence over the region. Let's discuss some major events and battles. The war officially began in 1754 when a young George Washington, which at the time he was lieutenant colonel, C-O-L-O-N-E-L, in the Virginia militia, led an expedition against a French fort in western Pennsylvania. This early skirmish, known as the Battle of Fort Necessity, marked the beginning of hostilities between the two empires. Over the next few years, the British and French clashed in numerous battles, with each side trying to gain control over key areas. In 1755, British General Edward Braddock led a ill-fated expedition to capture Fort Duquesne, D-U-Q-U-E-S-N-E. This was a French stronghold in the Ohio Valley. The British forces were ambushed by French and Native American troops, leading to a devastating defeat. This early loss for the British, along with other setbacks, made it clear that the war would not be easy. It'd be long and difficult. However, by 1757, Great Britain began to turn the tide of the war. Under the leadership of Prime Minister William Pitt, Great Britain increased its military presence in North America and focused on winning key battles. British forces, with the support of the colonial militia, just people that were living in the area that wanted to help the army out, they wanted to help them fight, they captured important French forts, including Fort Louisbourg and Fort Ticonderoga, Ticonderoga. This was a very significant victory, and another victory, which was very significant, came in 1759 with the capture of Quebec, which was the capital of French Canada. This victory effectively ended the French hopes of retaining control over its North American territories. The French and Indian War officially ended in 1763 with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. This treaty had major consequences for the territorial balance in North America. France ceded or gave up most of its North American possessions to Great Britain. Great Britain retained control or gained control of all Canada, and French lands east of the Mississippi River in Florida would be given to Great Britain as well. France, however, retained control of its Caribbean colonies, such as the Saint Domingue, it's now a country called Haiti. These were valuable for sugar production, so they wanted to maintain control of that. Spain, which was an ally of France during the war, also made territorial adjustments. Spain gave up Florida to Great Britain, but they also gained another territory. They just traded, basically. They gained Louisiana, and they took Louisiana from France. The Treaty of Paris drastically altered the map of North America, which laid the groundwork for future conflicts and shaping the relationships between European powers and Native American tribes. The French and Indian War had far-reaching consequences for both the British and the American colonies. For Great Britain, the war was expensive, leading to a massive increase in national debt. To help pay for the war, Great Britain imposed new taxes on its American colonies, such as the Sugar Act and the Stamp Act. These taxes angered many of the colonists who felt that they were being unfairly taxed, especially without any representation in the British Parliament. This growing sense of dissatisfaction eventually contributed to the American Revolution. As the colonists sought greater autonomy and freedom from the British rule, that was very important for them. But for Native American tribes, the outcome of the war was also significant. With the defeat of the French, many tribes lost their main European allies and were left to face the growing power of the British colonies alone. The British, after the war, began to tighten control over their colonial territories and expanded westward, pushing further into Native American lands. This was not a good thing. People didn't like having their homes and lands taken from them. This led to increased tensions and conflict between Native American tribes and the expanding American, or old school, Great British or English settlers. The French and Indian War was a pivotal event in American history. This is because it shaped the future of North America by changing the political and territorial landscape, literally. The war set the stage for the American Revolution by creating financial and political tensions between Great Britain and its American colonies. Additionally, it altered the relationship between Native American tribes and European settlers, with lasting effects on both indigenous communities and the colonial powers. Understanding the causes, events, and outcomes of the French and Indian War is essential for understanding the history of North America and the early roots of the United States. All right, so let's go through a little bit of terminology real fast, just so we know. French and Indian War, that was a war between France and Great Britain in North America. Unsettle means to cause nervousness, and retaliation is to do an action and return to an action. So if somebody makes you upset, you retaliate by making them upset. You do an action in response to an action. All right. While many countries contributed in small ways to the conflict, such as financial support, the main players in this conflict, the French and Indian War, were the French, the Native Americans, Native Americans allied on both sides of the war, depending on different tribes, and the British and the English 13 colonies. The English and the British were all allied because they were under control of Great Britain. How long did the war last? The French and Indian War was a conflict on the North American continent, and it was a larger imperial war between Great Britain and France. It was really known as like the 7 Years' War. The French and Indian War began in 1754 and ended with the Treaty of Paris in 1763. Right? In 1754, Benjamin Franklin created a political cartoon that created a powerful message. It was a drawing of a snake cut into 8 parts. Each of the parts represented more like one or more than 13 colonies, and it was basically supposed to be like a snake cut up. And says, if you don't join together, you will die. You got to work together. Kind of shows that they have to work together. They can't just let one person do all the work. You got to have the entire body of the American continent working together in conjunction with other allies to be able to survive. At the time, the colonists didn't think they needed to join together. They thought the British government would take care of them. The cartoon did not become popular until after the rebellion against the British started, and the colonists began to see the need to unite. It was during the French and Indian War that colonists saw how effective and powerful they could be when they worked together. So really that picture came up, it was really important after, the American Revolution. But it was created during the French and Indian War because they realized, hey, we are powerful together. We can work together and win and do this. Why is this picture important? There's an old saying that a picture's worth 1,000 words. Benjamin Franklin understood that saying. He understood that that's what it meant. That a picture was worth a whole book because you can see an image instantly, know what's going on. The colonists, and the American colonists, especially in the 13 colonies, needed a rallying call, and this picture helped motivate them to come together. Impacts of the war. So, the French and Indian War changed the relationship between the British and the British and their colonies, and after the 1763 Treaty of Paris, the British had a huge new empire to manage. All the land they got, they didn't have people living on it. They had other people that were living on it that were not happy with their rule. So the British began to enact policies that set the stage for the American Revolution. So not only did it anger people that were formerly under their control, that wanted to rule, but people that they just gained control over, if they're living in a different territory, right? They didn't the new territories they got from France. They did not really want the British to be their leaders. They were happy the way it was, or they could be happy. They could have been happy the way they were, and this new change of leadership could anger them. So not only were the British having to go through and be harsher on their newly gained territories, but they were also being harsher on the ones that they had control over prior to the war, where people were already living there, and they didn't like having these new laws put into place that they felt like they had no say-so in. So that being said, there's a lot of things to consider about the French and Indian War, and I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or drop it in the comment section. I'm happy to help. Thank you. Hope you have a great day.